Hey guys, happy Monday. It's April 27th. I'm out here in my garden where I've been working for the last couple weeks, clearing this spot out, putting up a fence. It's an existing garden I had last year, but deer ransacked it pretty early on in the spring, last spring. Ate all my snap peas and a lot of my pepper plants. I replanted, but before I did that, I built a makeshift fence. And makeshift fence, it was pretty crappy, but it was enough to keep them out. I read on the internet you gotta have like a 6 to 8 foot tall fence to keep the deer out, but they didn't bother jumping over the fence. It was only like 4 foot tall, but I'm gonna build something a little bit more wind resistant this year. I mean, it was the crappiest fence you'd ever see, and but it kept them out until they realized, you could push the one side of it down, and they stayed out for most of the part of the summer though. So I'm going to take you through the different steps I got to be approved to build this by the township and the HOA, and talk to you guys a little bit about the materials. Luckily, I did go out before the shelter in place was mandated, and I bought all my wood, all my supplies, everything I needed for this. I got approved and did everything I needed to be able to make the fence, so I didn't have to actually go out and buy anything or get anything after the shelter in place was put into effect, because I knew that was coming. So, all right, I can take you into the garage and show you some of the paperwork. So let's go over the prep work I had to do in order to be able to build my fence. Had to come up with a plan. So I just sketched this out on paper. These posts, or these dots, are just posts. So you can see they just go around the perimeter of the garden, the existing garden. So I didn't really have to do a whole lot of work of figuring out where I was going to put it or how big I was going to make it. I had to come up with a design of what it would look like so I could submit that to my homeowners association, because they want to make sure that it's not, ugly or something. Generally, you got to submit plans to your neighborhood homeowners association if you got one. So that's basically what it's going to look like. 4x4 posts. It's going to have some 2x4s. The whole thing is going to be stained white. It's going to get wrapped with this welded wire. This welded wire is 4 foot tall. Okay, so you can see that there. It's my welded wire. So I submitted the plans there to my HOA, and I got the stamp of approval. I also had to submit to them a layout of where it would go in my lot. So this is my lot. This is the road. You can see my lot sits back a little farther from the road. There's my layout of my house, my driveway, and my garage. That's where the garden with the fence is going to be, and then there's my shed. Okay, and then back here is where the woods is that you guys saw in the last video. All right, and I got the stamp of approval there. Now, before I tried to get my homeowners association approval, which I figured was going to be pretty easy because it's just a fence, I had to get Catawba Island Township zoning certificate in order to build the fence. Now, I could have built it without it, but if the zoning department would have found out about it, then they could have wrote me a bill that I would have had to pay for not having gotten the permit. Now, when I got my application from the township, they gave me an example of what I needed to give them, but I decided just to do it on the computer because that's easier for me. They gave me this graph paper. I started on that, and I was like, nah, screw that. But then there was 3 papers of directions for the application, but luckily they helped me out with that a lot, and I really didn't have to worry about the application too much. There was a fee. I did have to pay $16 in order to build the fence. I had to give the township $16. If my fence was any larger, it does max out at $20. Things like, I can't remember how much it is per foot. It's like 20 cents or something per foot of the perimeter, and that's how they charge you a maximum of 20. So let's go outside and take a look at those posts. We're out here in my garden now. So you guys can see all the posts are in. They're already all done. They're in. They're finished. Let's go up to one of them and take a look and see what they look like down at the bottom. Now down here on this post, you can see it's decently in the center there, inside that hole. Now the hole, you want your hole to be 3 times the diameter of the post. So if the post is 4-inch post, then 3 times 4 is 12. So you want your hole to be about 12 inches. and you fill it with concrete. So I went to Gordon Lumber and I had bought a bunch of bags, 80-pound bags of concrete. And they do make post hole cement specifically for post holes. However, Gordon doesn't have that. Cement works just fine though, regular cement. You actually pour it in dry. You set your post, you pour it in dry, and then you dump water on top of it and you can mix it inside the post. All right, now this one, I really like this one over here because I was able to taper it. You guys can see here how the concrete is tapered up towards the post. This one over here is pretty unique. After I dug the hole, I decided I wanted to change it, move the hole, and because I was off center, I decided to do it in the middle, and then I decided to have 8 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other side, like I had planned originally. So what I ended up doing was moving the hole, and since the hole was so big, I ended up putting this piece of cardboard in there to make a concrete form. So I filled this in with dirt a little bit, filled that in with dirt, filled that in with concrete, filled this side in with dirt, filled that side in with concrete. I didn't do all at once, like all concrete or all dirt at one time, because it would have knocked the cardboard over. But then I was able to get it in the middle. Now all these holes are 30 inches deep. There's 6 inches of concrete down at the bottom, and then 6 inches of concrete down at the bottom, and then there's a post sitting on top of that 6 inches of concrete. And that hole wasn't quite as big. Then I fill it up the rest of the way, all the way up about a couple inches from the surface of the ground. So the posts are encased in about 21, 22 inches of concrete, but they're all 24 inches below ground, and the concrete is at least 30 inches below ground. Now before I put all these posts in here, I did use stakes and line to lay out lines where those posts went. I'll show you what those stakes look like. So just these thin pieces of wood then that I pounded into the ground, and then I had a wire on it, a line on it. I ran it at a line on each side, so I used 8 stakes and laid out the lines for the posts. Yeah, I wish I would have taken a video of putting a post in, but it didn't occur to me. So maybe I'll do how to lay out a post, or how to install a post video next. All right, so there'll be more to come. I'll show you guys some more next week when I'm putting up the fence.